This one is just for a bit of fun. You will find the link for the full judgment in the description. How a case about a snail gave power to modern consumers and launched 1 million lawsuits. This is the story of how our modern law of negligence came about, all because of a fizzy drink. And a mollusk from Paisley in Scotland. The mollusk in question was a common snail that ended its days in a bottle of ginger beer. It made legal history in the 1932 case of Donahue v. Stevenson. It began on an unremarkable Sunday evening on the 26th of August 1928. May Donahue, a shop assistant, met a friend at the Well Meadow Cafe in Paisley, near Glasgow. Her unnamed friend ordered and paid for a pear and ice cream ginger beer float for May. When the ginger beer was poured into her glass, it was alleged the decomposing remains of a snail dropped out of the darkened, opaque bottle. May complained of stomach pains, and a doctor diagnosed gastroenteritis and shock. But if you are thinking McDonald's, hot cups of coffee and big bucks compensation, think again. This is 1928. No legal redress. In those days, the common law only acknowledged a duty of care was owed to people harmed by the negligent acts of others in specific and limited circumstances. For example, this was the case where a contract existed between the parties, or where a manufacturer was making something dangerous, or acting fraudulently. As the law stood, May Donahue could not take legal action over her snail. As May's unnamed friend had paid for the drink, it meant May had not entered into a contract with the cafe owner. Clearly, neither May nor her friend had a contract with the manufacturer of the ginger beer. The latter had not committed fraud. And ginger beer could hardly be described as dangerous. To the rescue came one doughty and determined solicitor called Walter Leachman, who took up May's case. He had already brought 2 cases against another drinks manufacturer, A.G. Barr, alleging a dead mouse had been found in a bottle of their ginger beer. Leachman had lost both cases, but he went ahead and issued May Donahue's writ against David Stevenson, the manufacturer of the ginger beer. The case went all the way to the highest court in the land. It was heard in the House of Lords on the 10th of December 1931, 3 years after May allegedly discovered the snail. Her counsel argued that a manufacturer who puts a product on the market in a form that does not allow the consumer to examine it before using it, is liable for any damage caused. Remember, May could not have examined her ginger beer before drinking it because the bottle was dark and opaque. Lord Atki of Aberdovi, one of the greatest judges of the 20th century, was on the panel who heard the appeal. Love thy neighbor. On the 26th of May 1932, he found in favor of May Donahue and rose to give the leading judgment in the case. The rule that you are to love your neighbor becomes in law you must not injure your neighbor, and the lawyer's question, "Who is my neighbor?" receives a restricted reply. You must take reasonable care to avoid acts or omissions which you can reasonably foresee would be likely to injure your neighbor. And with those words the modern law of negligence was born. Lord Atki based his judgment on the Christian principle of loving thy neighbor, and the parable of the Good Samaritan. This elastic term could now be applied to almost any relationship, in any circumstances. Among other areas, it covers personal injury, product liability, professional negligence on the part of doctors, architects, and even lawyers themselves. For many, Lord Atki's judgment was a noble principle based upon the Gospel of Luke. For others, it went too far, giving birth to our modern compensation culture. It has made many lawyers and insurance companies rich, but it has also seen the ill and injured compensated for losses caused by the negligent acts of others. In the original case, David Stevenson died less than a year after the law lord's decision, and his estate settled May Donahue's claim to the sum of £200. But what, I hear you ask, of the snail itself? Its claim to fame was that it launched 1 million lawsuits. And it gave power to the modern consumer. Now all hail the snail. All hail the snail.